All right, thank you. Good evening. It is Wednesday, October 6th, 2021. This is the Town of Groton Long-Term Recovery Committee meeting. And we have quite a number of attendees this evening. We have Mr. Burt, Ms. Harkin, Mr. Bronk, Moderator Eben, Mayor Hedrick, Director Fondulis, Councilors Bordelon, Baumgardner, and myself, Mayor Granatowski. We have another attendee. Let me see who's here. Superintendent Austin is with us as well. Thank you for joining us, Superintendent Austin. Okay, the first item is approval of minutes, 2021-713, September 15th, 2021 special meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Moved by Bordelon and seconded by Hedrick. Any discussion of the minutes? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes of September 15th, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved unanimously, thank you. And now we are on to new business. And the first item is 2021-712 COVID needs discussion with business representatives. And I want to thank Mr. Burt and Mr. Bronk for reaching out, Ms. Harkin as well, for reaching out to the members of our community to come and speak with us this evening. And I'm going to turn it over at this time to Mr. Bronk to kind of run the discussion since he knows where we want to go with this. You have the floor, Mr. Bronk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As indicated at the last committee meeting, there was interest in reaching out to select business representatives, and that was actually done. We did reach out directly to 25, and there were initially that was done by email, and then there was follow-up by email, text message, and also phone. We did reach over a dozen who were confirmed to come this evening to this meeting. We explained that we weren't necessarily interested in a specific business's request or ask, but that we were looking for a broader business understanding as to what their issues were related to COVID, and that this effort tonight was part of a larger needs assessment effort. There will be a number of other opportunities, whether it's bang the table or coming to an in-person meeting or other traditional means, email, whatever people needed to do. As I mentioned, I have an email from Dan Miser. I'll do my best to explain his concern. So we're open to any of those means in order to get the information. But I did explain to those who were invited that the purpose of gaining that input is to best understand what their needs are so we can program our funding and select priorities to address their needs. I gave some examples in the email to the invite. Possibly they would discuss labor shortages, supply chain issues, regulatory barriers, or other financial hurdles, but those are just some. I'm sure there are more. And invited them to this evening's meeting. I didn't necessarily put any time limits, although I did explain that they were among a select few and that they would be asked to explain their experience. So I think, Mayor, we're open to starting the input part of this at this point, and I'm not sure who's going to go first.
Well, I thought what I would do is I would take it in just the order of the list that you gave me, if that's all right.
Sure.
Okay, very good. So from the Greater Mystic Chamber of Commerce, Executive Director Bruce Flax. Bruce, would you like to speak first, sir?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us, and I appreciate Paige reaching out to us. And we have since COVID, COVID hit us, we've been navigating much like everybody else has, but holding the hands of some of the businesses alongside us. We did. I think that there's a couple of things. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared to talk right away, but let me just get my my thoughts together here for a second. So there was a lot of things from the business side of things and with the chamber that were affected by COVID. Just speaking on a chamber perspective, we had to move out of where we were over by the seaport and downsize. We downstaffed as well. We took a look at how we were doing business. We took a look at how we could best help business. We are not only a business-driven chamber, but a tourism-driven chamber as well. And so, the lack of tourism at the beginning and the increase in tourism that we saw this past summer had impacts on us. I think that there's from the committee standpoint, for what you guys are doing and listening to the business community, I think there's opportunities for nonprofit and for businesses. In particular, I spoke with a business downtown who started their business before, right around when COVID hit. And so they weren't privy to any of the PPP money. And so they've kind of had to go out on their own and figure things out, hanging on by a thread. And as you guys try to develop how the money is distributed, or what it's spent on, how it's helped in the community, I think one place to look could be those kinds of businesses that fall into a certain profile, who did not benefit from the COVID money that was given by the government. Along those lines, I've been involved with the Stonington side of things, and the chamber made a request on the Stonington side. One thing that we saw there was that we wanted to make the offer that another chamber had made on the Stonington side of things, where I think there's a need on the Fed, because it's federal money, that it has to be, the records that are kept have to be kept, well, and the money that's spent has to be told how it was spent, and there needs to be reports given. But the amount of money that the town of Groton has in their coffers for this particular is a lot of money. And so we wanted to suggest that possibly the chamber could carve out a small envelope of money that we could set parameters around. Maybe it would be those businesses that didn't get PPP money, and try to vet those and work with the town and work with a committee that can vet a certain amount of money, and applications could be made by businesses based on the parameters that are set. In terms of other areas, I think there's an important area that should be looked at around health and human services. As an example, there are people who took a hit during this time, and like their access to exercise programs and things like that may have been compromised. And maybe it's possible that some of the programs or money that could be spent could be to support health programs for people who were hit hard by COVID, and that would include students as well, maybe even like providing healthy food, that kind of thing, which I'm sure Marge will speak to as well. Why don't I stop there, and maybe Mayor, afterwards I can probably put a few more thoughts together, and after everyone's spoken, if there's enough time, I could circle back around.
That's fine. Thank you so much. That's helpful. Okay. So the next on the list is Mr. Groves from Berkshire Bank.
Hi, I'm also representing the Economic Development Commission with the dual hats on it, because we have been doing outreach. I know the vice chair has been working with the Mystic Chamber to do another forum after they did a survey, and a lot of the responses, especially the heavy ones, didn't surprise me, just from what I do in banking and also what I do from outreach myself. The primary concern I could put my finger on is the trying to attract employees, particularly into the area. It's across the board, and I see it from the cleaners across the street from me to the bank to everywhere else. Everyone's looking for help, and I don't think that's really a secret to any of us here. Some of the feedback I've gotten, it's tough to compete with some of the bigger players that are able to offer higher stipends if they stay for 6 months or so, and so they're competing with a job market. All are trying to attract the exact same pool of limited potential employees that we have in our region. I talked with a gal from HR at EB because we've been coordinating with them also, and they find very difficult to attract people from outside the area to come in for employment purposes. Part of the reasoning is housing, quality of life that they look for from that younger group. So there's a lot of issues that go into it that we do discuss from time to time. And I just think we have to keep that conversation going because as I said, it is across the board from most people I speak with. Some are luckier than others. Myself, I've had full employment in my office, but I am also forced to go up and cover offices in Newport and Westerly and such. So it's not just specific to our area, but of course, Groton is my main concern, as it should be. So anything we can address, and I'm interested when we have the forum, if we can get input from some of the other employers that put this as a major concern is ideas that there are others. Is what can we do to induce, to bring in employees from the outside into our area, because we just don't have a large pool. And that's not just the short term. I think that's a long-term thing. And I think we've seen this across the board is what they're looking for. And we're trying to address that with some of the development. And it's a step-by-step process, and it's not going to be solved overnight. So happy to answer anything or give feedback at the end, but that's basically the feedback I've been getting when I've done my outreach.
Thank you, Mr. Groves. Ms. Lamson Rockwell from Sector, please.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here tonight. So one of the things that I definitely found was supply chain issues and being able to get raw materials and getting them for an affordable price. So COVID definitely affected the supply chain. This is not news to anyone, but for business owners to have to put out a product consistently and have such difficulty in getting raw materials, it was very, very impactful. And to not only have the shortages, but to, if they were available, to have to pay a lot more for these raw materials. And it would change from one moment to the next. There might be a shortage on one thing at one point, and then the next month would be something else. So that I'm seeing quite a bit, and it's making it very difficult for businesses to keep their costs. Some have raised their costs for product, but there's only so much you can go before the market can't bear the cost of all the raw material upcharges.
Good to see you.
So
I'm in
that's
another
definitely-
meeting. Can I grab a white chair and just sit outside?
That's definitely what I would like to report in as the most significant. Of course, the employee shortages is most definitely just as important, but I think that was covered pretty well already tonight. But I would definitely, those two items are, I believe, the most impactful from this.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Mr. Jeanette from Jeanette Construction. Was it *6, Mr. Bronk?
I believe it's *6, Mr. Jeanette, to unmute.
Good evening, sir.
Okay. Good evening.
Thank you for being here.
What I'm finding across the board is, one, it's tough to get laborers. Two, the cost of the building materials and people being able to afford some of the prices of the building materials. In fact, I had a couple jobs canceled because of the cost of building materials, and the people just couldn't afford it. So that's my difficulty. And of course, getting qualified people to do the work without having to go too deep. But I thank God that I've been blessed enough where I've gotten minimal work, but I had a couple of good sized jobs canceled on me because of the cost of raw materials. But I'm hoping for a better future, especially now with the economy seems like it's coming back. So hopefully the raw materials will have more availability and the price of them will actually drop a little bit. So it's more affordable for the homeowner. You know, if you have any questions for me, I'll be glad to answer them at the end of the conversation.
Thank you, sir. Justin Primo from Manana. Thank you for being here.
Hi,
You're
I've
welcome.
been very blessed with very solid staff. So the employment issue has not been an issue for me, but it recently had, as in restaurant employees talk to each other. And when other restaurants start paying dishwashers $19 an hour, which that's a minimum wage job, and they're getting paid $19 an hour because they're so desperate for someone. And then my employees hear about that. They're like, why aren't we getting more? And we're like a very family friendly, affordable restaurant. And I can't raise the price of burrito by $3 because I have to pay dishwasher that much more. And just like, if you pay dishwasher that much more, you got to pay everyone else that much more. And the supply chain thing is, it's very difficult to get stuff. That's all I'm going to say. And it's not a short-term thing. The effects of COVID are going to last a lot longer than COVID. So this is a long ride for all of us. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Primo. Mr.
Thank you.
Ferguson of the Downtown Mystic Merchants.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you, sir.
Yes? Okay. I don't have many things. I haven't heard a lot from the stores, but the few things I do have to share are, basic echoes of what has already been said regarding employment. The stores had a lot of summer help, but obviously they've all returned to college or high school or other places. But one thing that was brought up a while ago for me was just the fact that some people don't keep their masks on in the store, and it felt like there's some sort of community service officer to help enforce the mask mandate. That would, I think, alleviate a lot of pressure that small shops have where they only have one employee and they have to leave their register or something to kind of enforce the mask mandate. So that's employment and kind of enforcement of the mask mandate would be two needs I would share for the Downtown Mystic Merchants.
Thank you, sir. Sandra Chapman from Steamboat Inn, please. Ms. Chapman? You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Right. I'm from the Steamboat Inn, yeah. I am echoing a lot of thoughts like what Justin said and also Bruce earlier. And as far as this money that you have and I was thinking as far as employees go, it would be really nice if we could have some kind of incentive for interns to come in, even in restaurants, as for the hospitality business, maybe some kind of halfway like loan, like a PPP loan, but more on an educational basis, so that they will actually get something out of it, and the business will get something out of it too. So some kind of program to be set up to, you know, with local schools and things like that, to get kids in the summers and things like that. And I also think that we have noticed that we have had a clientele change, and we are getting a lot of visitors from Connecticut. Our guests are, there's so many people coming in from places like Trumbull and Fairfield County and places like that, because they want to get away, but they don't want to travel too far, because people are still, you know, a little nervous, and it's still uncertain times. So I am concerned that when things start to really calm down and people start to travel again, we might start to lose this new wave of people coming to the Mystic area. And that said, I think we do have to always be, you know, on our toes about keeping money in the tourism budget, and making sure that we're always, you know, keeping Mystic on the map and that kind of thing. Well, the whole southeastern area of Connecticut, just continue to support, you know, the service centers on the highways and all those types of things, the information centers, because they have all struggled immensely, especially the private ones, because no one was traveling and going into them. So whilst its business is booming, I just had a staff meeting and said, you know, we can never get complacent about that, because it could all just change again. And I just think it's really important to just always have a drive as far as, you know, any extra programs for tourism or anything like that. If anyone has any ideas, it's always good to send people to this area, try to get them to come back. And that means making it easier for them to get here, be here, you know, park here, eat here, and there's all those things come into that. And Mystic is a busy little town, and you know, there's all kinds of people working on parking programs and things like that at the moment. So there is a really active scene going on in Mystic. We're trying to obtain more parking spots off the side streets, things like that. But all this takes time, and it's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be in place. So that's basically what I had to say. That's it from me.
Mayor, can I jump in?
We have two more speakers for first time. Then we'll open it up.
Can I just say something to Sandra?
Sure.
Long time no see.
Hi.
Second thing is, I believe Grasso Tech has a hospitality program,
Yeah.
which
to
they should involve the town with more of,
Right.
because there's so many hospitality opportunities for those kids to learn real life experiences.
And for
So I'm just
example,
throwing that out.
yeah, I did reach out to Grasso Tech, and I spoke to the main person in charge of the hospitality program. And because I didn't get a response, I couldn't get anyone. And I think there wasn't a big incentive behind it, where this is something they could pass off as a credit, or, you know, they were going to get some kind of help with their college for doing this, even though they'd still get paid by us. They could have some kind of other incentive built in to their 3-month internship with us or something, you know?
Right. So I'm not sure if you know Ms. Chapman, but I teach at Grasso Tech. So I'd be happy to speak to the person who's in charge of the hospitality department.
Okay.
And ask him to reach to you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor, sorry for interrupting.
That's okay, no problem. I just want to give everybody one shot around first, and then we'll see where Mr. Bronk wants us to lead after that. So we have Kim Maxon from Two Sisters.
Hi, sorry about that.
That's okay.
So, we've been fortunate in that we've pretty much stayed busy with our shipping stores, both in Jewett City and Groton. But one of the issues that we're finding, just like with what Justin said, is for jobs that typically were minimum wage and a little bit above, now we have to compete with $16, $17 an hour, which is kind of forcing us to raise our prices. And obviously customers aren't happy with it. Our cost of goods are going up, and there's that struggle. So I don't know, we don't know where we're going to land with our salaries and our pricing. And so, I don't know, that's all still up in the air with us right now. And we're hoping to kind of figure it out as the months but we're also a family business, like with what Justin said. So our employees are very loyal, but that's only going to go so far, so at some point we have to figure out like what we're going to do. And it's probably going to be where, I got to start throwing some money. I've been kind of taking money out and, giving just to make people happy, but I can't keep doing that. It's gotta start, doing it the right way, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So that's where we're at right now.
Thank you very much. And the last person we have on the list is Wendy Vincent from the Women's Business Development Center, please.
We've seen a huge uptick with our clients who needed help navigating the PPP and the EIDL loans. So we've spent a lot of time, and they've spent a lot of time with our business advisors figuring out how to apply, how can I apply, how can I qualify, and then all the reporting at the back end. So our numbers have grown exponentially by the amount of clients that we've served through COVID, just because of a big part of that. We've also seen a lot of our clients who've had to pivot their businesses and have come to us for help in figuring out how to do that during COVID. For example, I know we've got some restaurants here and how they haven't been able to, open as much. And so we've helped them pivot to, add catering and to add some food trucks to their business and that type of stuff. We've also seen a huge uptick in the number of people starting businesses. And a lot of that has come from a lot of people who've gotten laid off. They're looking to be more self-independent financially while being able to work around some of their families that when kids had to go do remote schooling, and there's been a lot of challenges with that. So we've seen a lot of people with a larger interest in starting their own businesses so that they can make their own schedules.
Very good. Thank you so much. I don't think there's anyone else here. Did I miss anyone for the first round of chatting? Okay, Mr. Bronk, where would you like to head with this next, sir?
If I could read Dan Miser's email, I know it's a little awkward, but he did plan on attending and unfortunately could not. I think this might be beneficial to the group as well. He had 4 issues that he identified. I'm going to do my best to paraphrase, but he did provide a lot of detail. The first issue, without question, staffing is our single biggest challenge. There was definitely the issue of expanded unemployment benefits that affected us this summer, but it's much more than that. The pandemic caused all of us to step back and reassess. Many people left the hospitality sector to pursue jobs that offered more consistent and normal hours for comparable pay. The second issue, wage compression. With the workforce that did not come back, with the workforce that did come back or stayed throughout, there was a significant increase in hourly rates paid to retain those folks. With everyone desperate for help, the workforce has extraordinary leverage to ask for and receive pay increases well above historical and industry norms. If one guy gets a raise to keep him from going to the competition, a domino effect begins and everyone asks for a raise. The third issue, childcare. I have heard that before. I haven't heard it tonight, but he raised childcare. Actually, that's why he can't be here tonight. With many of our positions filled by single parents or two income earner households, trying to balance affordable childcare with work is a major struggle. So many families depend on grandparents and parents to help out. And with many of them still living a somewhat distanced and isolated life due to COVID, the free childcare has often disappeared. The last issue, number 4, cost of goods. Nationally, the cost of food and beverages have risen about 11% this past year. With cost of goods up, labor costs up, and revenues down, the math of owning a small business, particularly restaurants, gets tighter and tighter. So I think that captures his points. Many of those points were mentioned by others as well. I did want to add a few more things. Sometime tonight, I would like Tabitha to talk about ongoing community engagement and outreach, but I have a couple other points. I was on a call this morning with the Small Business Development Center, and really grateful that they actually offered that. And the purpose was to bring on many Connecticut towns and ask them, what are you doing today with your ARPA money to help the business community? And what I found out is that most towns are pretty much where we're at right now. Many have not even really begun a needs assessment process. And they understand the pressures to simply hand money out, but they don't know, like us, what is the best way to invest this money and to help our business community. They're also concerned, like we are, about making sure we don't double dip, meaning have business entities receive PPP money, the economic injury, disaster loan money, other bridge financing from the state and others. And if not, why haven't you applied for that money? So that's a large discussion. The Small Business Development Center said they're going to try to assist in providing some ideas to us as well for business programming, and that it had to be done fairly quickly. So I just wanted to share that we are not an island. I know some communities have been quick in releasing funds. There's also been some pushback in that maybe a full needs assessment hasn't yet been conducted. The other point I wanted to bring up, I'm going to try to be brief on this. A week ago, I was on also another SBDC session, and they talked about the economic injury disaster loan program. And for the businesses that are on the call tonight, it's quite clear that that money is still available, although the PPP money has dried up. Through the end of this calendar year, small businesses alone can go after this money. And there's a special program that's been carved out as a result of COVID. They've increased the cap, the maximum that a small business can get, up to $2 million per business. And it's a 30-year term, 30-year payback with a 2-year deferment. They have no payments for 2 years. The interest rate's relatively low, 3.75%. Now, I know businesses don't want to take on more debt. I understand that, but there's a lot of flexibility with this money. And I can go on and on. I'm gonna stop. That's not the purpose of tonight's meeting, but it's time sensitive. For businesses who are interested in getting more resources, there are a lot of federal monies that are still available. And this goes directly through the Small Business Administration portal. You don't have to go through a bank. You go directly through the program. It takes about 3 to 6 weeks to go through the process. I have other resources if people are interested. They want websites, phone numbers, whatever. They can contact me after this meeting. I'm more than happy to provide the information. I'm well aware that the SBDC, Wendy here, and Small Business SBDC will also help out with Judith, who is located at Sector at least part of the week, I believe. So I just wanted to make sure that that was on people's radar. The last point, I'm not sure if it's appropriate, Mayor, for Tabitha to talk about the upcoming outreach efforts that we have underway?
I think that would be great. Thank you. Ms. Harkin, thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Mayor. So I did send out a flyer today to a large group of users and asked to share on social media. So I think that did make it out on many channels already. And also we're advertising in the newspaper about a upcoming open house drop-in. So that'll be, you can come, there's two, we're gonna be doing two drop-ins, one in the city. Sierra Patrick's gonna help out with that one, where it'll be in the foyer and you can have 3 stations where you can give some feedback about how Groton should spend the money and categorize the money. And then also in the evening, we'll be having one at the senior center. So that's October 19th at 1 p.m. in Groton City and at 6:30 at the senior center. So that's one thing. And we're also launching what Paige referred to already as being the table. We're actually calling it Greater Groton, which is going to be a site to this engagement platform that's email, not just emails, but surveys, interactive posting, commenting, liking, sharing, that kind of thing. It's going to be launching around the same time, hopefully on the same day as the open houses. And then we're also going to be doing some mailers that'll be going out and a Groton TV scroll. So really trying to get the word out that we're looking for feedback and gathering as much community ideas before we have that discussion and put things in buckets like we've discussed.
Great, thank you. Mr. Bronk, anything else, or should we open it up for discussion? We have some time left.
I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, so we have the regular members of the committee. I'll open up the floor for questions or comments, and we'll begin with Councilor Bordelon.
Thank you. First, I just wanted to thank everyone who took the time to come out and share their perspective or experience based on areas in which they're seeing the needs. I think it's really interesting, as in last night's meeting at the town council, we were talking about how Groton is falling out of 169 towns in the top 25 towns that are considered in distress per 9 categories. I think this is really interesting segue into a lot of things. I think that should be considered when looking at our decision-making and the COVID response. I did a little bit of research and work with Ledgelight Health District looking at needs assessments. And the first thing on there were women, minorities, and childcare were the 3 things. And I heard a few things tonight. On a $15 wage, a single mother or even a joint income family, when school was out, parents did not have the ability to prepare or pay for childcare. So at $15 an hour and their child is home and now they had to become the teachers to assist the homeschooling, they had to give up jobs to be able to help educate their children. And then in the evenings, to return back to work, when you're paying $8 to $9 an hour, you're forced to pick. You don't want to pick the cheapest childcare to send your child to. And if you're only making under, you're making somewhere between $15 and $20, 8 of that off the top is going to childcare. Families found that it was better just to stay home, to be safe, not bring the COVID virus in, and to be present and help educate their children. I think that's a shift that I'm seeing as a need from the studies that I saw working with Ledgelight Health District, and then seeing that come to fruition when speaking last night at the council. We scored one of the 9 reasons for scoring so low and being a distressed town and out of 169 town was high school degree, folks that have not achieved their high school diplomas. And income per capita, things like that. And I know that the burden of the increased wages does stress the small business, but at the same time, folks are at a point where they have to choose safety over income, childcare, and a lot of these jobs historically have been filled by a lot of folks that maybe don't have higher degrees or are people of color or identify as a form of minority. Looking at COVID with this money and looking at the pandemic, the other thing that Ledgelight Health District did was look at a unique way in the fact that they were all first responders working as bus drivers, working cleaning house, childcare, and the need is changing. And so I think it's important to look at that. And I think there's an important way that we should, when the town manager gives us some more data from the state to see exactly how we scored in ranking these top 9 things, I think really looking, I heard workforce readiness tonight. That's something that I'm really passionate about. At the high school level, we all want our kids to be college, driven and ready, and not every kid is going to go to college, and that is okay. And I think workforce readiness is the next step that we can give our children. And having some type of collaboration or some funding go in that's worked with the school and the town, and some of these monies working with Ledgelight Health District or maybe even Grasso and other businesses, and do a partnership where we bring students in that can get right into the workforce now and start to work and give them the skills and be able to bring them in and build them up. So these are the things that I think of. But I do think there is a need, and I would love to figure out ways to support our businesses, our small businesses, and make sure that they're getting qualified, workers, but also addressing that childcare need. And I think that is extremely important. So that's an area that I would like to help with, is looking at childcare.
Thank you. Mr. Groves, I think he left. Mr. Groves put in a note that he had to take a business call. So he was concurring with people on the staffing issue. So thank you. If there's anybody else that needs to take off, you're welcome to add your last comments. Otherwise, I will go to Counselor. All right, let's go back to Mr. Flax, please. Counselor Baumgartner, if you don't mind.
Thank you. Thanks, Andre. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. I can put a couple of thoughts together. I think that from this committee's perspective, that there is you're taking the time to develop like a strategy, figure out how to do this money. And I think obviously it's great, and it's great that the federal government has given this money to us. Hopefully that when you continue to convene, you'll put around like a committee together with some people from the business community and nonprofits and that kind of thing, Ledgelight Health and other areas that can help to contribute and have a hand in the decision making. I think that that would be, from my standpoint, that would be very helpful. I think that another challenge is going to be to monetize some of the issues that you're bringing up. I think some of the things that, like Councilor Bordelon brought up about the top 9 things, and what Ledgelight Health District has brought up is how to monetize that and how to break it out and do something that's effective for the community and do it in an effective way. When Stonington did theirs a couple weeks ago, they broke it into four areas: services, economy, infrastructure, facilities, and PPE COVID expenses. And I think there's going to be a lot of obviously every community, every town is going to be going through the same thing. So to Paige's point about, he was talking to the small business organization today, that you can get some good information from the communities that have already started to do this. Somebody brought up tourism, and it is important, and I think that the paperwork or the information from the federal government touches on tourism. And from the chamber standpoint, obviously it's very important. We did ask the town of Stonington for money for. We're planning on doing an informational truck to shout about Groton and Stonington and promote the area and continue to have people want to come here after people can travel further. So you'll be hearing more about that from us. But I also hopeful that in the coming months that the committee comes up with a way or a means to take these requests in, so that anybody who's interested in making a proposal to the town or to the committee has some kind of paperwork or means to do it, and everyone's kind of following the same kind of thing. I think that would be very helpful, not only for you guys, but for the community as well. The only other thing I want to touch on was I did speak about it, but I think the health, exercise, the people who don't have access to that is very important. And the committee should look at some of the longer term things that are paid for now that will have longer term effects. One that's like a simple one. I think there's a program in Stonington called Hike Stonington where they give out all the different trails and you hike them, and as you hike them you get different incentives like water bottles and that kind of thing from the organization. But if we did some kind of like Hike Groton, or kind of follow that thing where we're incentivizing and encouraging people to get outside and exercise, that would be the kind of program. Again, not that much money, but just where you're encouraging people to get out. So I appreciate you letting me speak again, and that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to assure everybody who's here that town staff and this committee and the council have been working on this process for quite a while now. And we just approved the process last night, and there is opportunity all along the way for feedback. We definitely are encouraging feedback, as Ms. Harkin touched upon. Okay, we have Mr. Bronk, I think you wanted to chime in. Then we have Councillor Baumgardner and Moderator Eben. So Mr. Bronk, did you wish to speak? You're muted, Mr. Bronk.
Thank you. It just occurred to me that we have some participants tonight that were unaware of our process, and thank you for bringing that up. And just to clarify, we are all eager to actually put this funding to good use, invest it in the community. We do have a draft application that is being refined, but we're going to be ready once we complete this needs assessment process. It's not an academic exercise. Once we get these buckets, we call them, where we know this is where we want to put the money and this is how much is going to go in each bucket, we're eager to ask for applications from the community at large, and that's beyond business, and get these individual requests in hand so that the committee and also ultimately the council can deliberate and find out how the funding will actually be distributed.
Thank you, Mr. Bronk. We will go to Councillor Baumgardner and then Moderator Eben.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to everyone for coming out this evening. Your input is incredibly valuable. As the mayor mentioned, we've been deliberating over several months and determining how the town ought to spend about $8.4 million of its allocation, ARPA allocation, in the next 2 years. And this public engagement process will, have a huge bearing on what that outcome will be. As the mayor and Paige and Tabitha mentioned, we've already commenced our needs assessment, and again, this public input is incredibly important. But very shortly, we will be categorizing several projects by buckets, and then prioritizing those buckets according to certain criteria. Like Councillor Bordelon, my focus throughout this process will be on equity. Certainly, recognizing that some of our most vulnerable in our community have been most disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. And what can we do to ensure that their futures are bright in Groton, that childcare isn't an issue that we bring up time and time again. I think one thing, and I've mentioned this also time and time again, the superintendent has heard this, but I think the pandemic exposed that there were already enormous inequities that existed in our community, such as internet access, where so many students, needed to rely on internet service. In some cases, realizing that, some of these families may not have had internet service when they really needed to in order to complete homework assignments in the past. So in many ways, the pandemic also allowed for great investment in those areas on the, in terms of public dollars. And now we can do so much more with our own, our ability to allocate funds directly. So my question, I guess, to the group would be, what are you hearing from your employees? And certainly you have your needs, and we certainly will be attending to those needs as well to support small business growth in Groton. And again, my hat's off to you during these unprecedented times. I don't know how you do it, and we really do appreciate your investment in our community. And any way our town can be helpful, certainly know town staff will be, and the council will be. So I guess my question is, what are you hearing directly from the employees in terms of what would be most helpful to them so that they can continue to be employed at your respective business and not have to worry about some of the other things that may be weighing them down?
So before we open up
More
the
money.
floor, hold on 1 second, please. Mr. Burt wanted to mention something very briefly. Go ahead, Mr. Burt. You're muted, Mr. Burt.
Sorry. I rarely do that too. I just wanted to Tabitha or Paige, if you can, for everybody who is signed up, who's not a regular member, if you could send a copy of that process of that flow chart to them so they can see how it will work. And now that it's approved by the council, so that we can get it out on Facebook and some of that too, and explain the process a little more. And the newspaper is doing an article on some of this right now too.
Thank you, Mr. Burt. Okay, Mr. Primo, you were saying something and I cut you off to let Mr. Burt talk. Did you want the floor, Mr. Primo? Justin?
In terms of what Andre was saying, what employees want is more money. And it's hard as an employer to give them more money when everything's costing me more already and business is down. And I love them. They are my family. We are a very close-knit group. I'd love to pay them all more. And that's all they want. But I still got to make it a place where people can afford to go. So it's difficult. It's a challenge. And I don't want to lose them. I mean, they are like blood to me. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, we'll go to moderator Evan, if you'd like to comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, my thoughts are, kind of probably duplicative to reinforce some of the things I've heard tonight. And I want to reach out and thank everyone here who's shared their perspectives and their concerns tonight, because it's been incredibly useful and helpful to hear this. But I guess in terms of allocating this money, I hear a few threads coming through. Mr. Flax mentioned, the issues of health. Underlying a lot of the insecurity that I think COVID has really kind of highlighted is healthcare, not just hiking and personal healthcare, but actually access to good healthcare and doctors. And I think to the extent that we can have employees who have access to that healthcare, and I'm not assuming that this kind of ARPA money is the key to solving these types of thorny issues. But to the extent that we might be able to pry open some of these issues and help some of, say, Mr. Primo's employees, because my husband is a contractor, he's a small business owner, and I know that these issues are just, really ripple throughout all small business owners, giving your employees, paying them adequately, but at the same time being able to recoup, your losses and make a profit, but also giving them access to healthcare and the benefits that they deserve. So I think that, to the extent we could wrestle with some of those bigger issues and perhaps, maybe lay a groundwork or think about them at least with this kind of funding, it would be helpful. And the second is what Councilor Bordelon brought up, which is education. I read in the newspaper today in the day, that I think it was New London, maybe it was yesterday, but they had a big allocation to Ness and they were wondering why Fresh didn't get it. Fresh New London. We also have Project Oceanology in our community. We have educational organizations that I think are worthy of supporting, and I didn't hear from them in our last meeting, and I don't hear from them tonight. So I'm just hoping that maybe I know the superintendent Austin is here. We can kind of think collaboratively about getting a pipeline. And when I think about a pipeline, I'm not thinking about a pipeline to minimum wage jobs. I think we need a pipeline to higher wage jobs that are going to create a strong middle class. And I think that's really where we need to go. The J1 visas were really kind of discombobulated by COVID. And I hope I know that's part of the reason why we have some of these kind of employment issues, but I also feel that that's a betrayal of our local workforce. And so I think we need to really invest in our local, in our residents, in the folks that are living here, that we hope will continue to live here, as Mr. Brunk will tell you, when they get their jobs. So that's where I really see maybe a way we could work together, is educating for that workforce of the future, providing for childcare, which I think is essential, but also, seeing if we can alleviate businesses kind of grappling with healthcare issues, because I think that's really the big nut to crack. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to just see, the reason why we convene this evening is to hear from our business owners and the representatives of the community. So I want to just see if anyone who's joining us, you gave so much of your time to us already, if you wanted to add anything before you have to head out. So did anyone wish to speak again? Any of our business owners or representatives? Ms. Vincent?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what everybody else is saying, are things that we've heard from our small businesses. Healthcare has been an issue for a lot of them, but as small business owners, a lot struggle with that to begin with. And childcare is huge. Like I said, a lot of women have, and not, we've had some men too, but come to us because they've quit that $15 an hour job because they want to start a business, because they've had to be home with their children. So I just want to reiterate that what everybody is saying is exactly what we've seen come through our organization as well. And thank you for letting us, for inviting me here to be part of this today too.
We appreciate your time. Thank you so much. We have another person that just joined us, I'm trying to promote the gentleman from the Board of Directors of the Brewers Guild, Mr. Simoncini. Oh, there you go. Thank you. Hello, good evening, sir. Mr. Simoncini? Hi, how are you?
Sorry.
Thank you for joining us. We were just, I can just bring you up to speed on what we've done. All of the business representatives, we did kind of a quick around the table, and everybody had a chance to speak and share their concerns with us, and we were just wrapping up now, but we'd love to hear your input, please, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure it's probably been echoed a number of times, but staffing has been of a major concern. Just making sure that we have people who are, up to speed and willing and able to be employed has been a major issue, specifically with our front of house. For those of you who may not know, we operate a tap room in the Groton location. And the beginning of the pandemic, everything before that happened, it was going great, but we had to close down, kind of pivot our business, kind of moved away from front facing public visitation. And we opened, I believe it was in June again of this summer, to the public. And it's been difficult to make sure that we have enough people available and ready to work. So that's been a massive undertaking of ours, as well as supply chain concerns. We're in manufacturing, so cans, raw goods as far as grain and hops go for our industry is troublesome. Fortunately enough, we're sizable where we can make sure we're getting what we need, but I mean, Outer Light down the road, similar size. There's other smaller breweries like our friend Drew at Barleyhead in downtown Mystic on the Groton side. So supply chain is also difficult. And then just getting the public to come back out. The fact that not everyone is back at work at the physical brick and mortars that are Pfizer and EB has been difficult for our front-facing business.
Okay, thank you so much. We lost another couple members. Ms. Lamson Rockwell had to leave us, and Mr. Flax from the chamber Thank you, Ms. Chapman, for joining us, and I will put Mr. Jones in touch with you. Mr. Bronk, did you want to wrap things up?
I had a quick question for Aaron. Just wondering, beyond the issues that you mentioned, what about overall infrastructure for your facility at that location?
Sure, we do pretty well down there as far as sewer and water goes. That was one of the things that I sought out the town of Groton for. So that hasn't been terrible. The one thing that we have run into, and unfortunately it's kind of a duopoly, right? Comcast and there's one other internet supplier in the area, just hasn't really, while they say they can keep up, we often on Leonard Drive run into issues as far as that goes. Other than that though, no major concerns. I mean, I think I see with the funds that are being parked at localities for infrastructure upgrades, like the sewer department, and making sure that we can handle future growth makes a lot of sense with sewer and water. We see it on the opposite side of the river in Mystic all the time. New development really puts a strain on Aquarian on the Mystic side. I haven't really seen that happen in the Groton, on the Groton side of Mystic, or in Groton, but we haven't been there nearly as long. So I definitely think that it's important to look to the future as far as how we can increase the infrastructure so that we can plan on having more development, more people living and playing in the Groton area.
Thank you very much. The reason I asked that is the ARPA funding is explicit on certain elements that can be expended, that the funds can be expended on, and clearly water, sewer, broadband, those are explicit. The other categories within the government, the federal government's ruling is they're a little bit more nebulous, but basically infrastructure for those items are slam dunk. If Groton decided that they wanted to expend some of the funding to assist areas, businesses, or economic development for water, sewer, or broadband, no questions asked. Thank you. As we mentioned earlier, this is the beginning of our outreach. Tabitha touched on future efforts. We're always open to ideas. If after this meeting, you have an idea regarding childcare or the idea of partnering with Grasso for an internship program or anything that would help us in moving towards solutions, we are all ears. We're really interested in getting these new ideas from people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge Mayor Hedrick and Superintendent Austin and see if either of you had anything you wanted to add to the discussion at this point.
I would have to say the schools are facing some of the same hardships, especially with employee shortages. We're under contract with STA, a bus company that has been down really a quarter of their fleet. So they were first down 5 bus drivers, then 10. So that really has made a huge impact on our families when you have to double up runs and, you have long waits. So we have been working tirelessly to try to resolve these issues. They did negotiate a good contract. So people are going to be paid better money to drive buses. So, I'm hopeful and I'm seeing more people come back into the industry, which is really good news. So each day gets a little better, but it really has caused a lot of hardship. Also, our paraprofessionals are just such an incredible support to our children. And, we've really been looking for more paraprofessionals, tutors, custodians, because we're keeping everything really super clean. And, some of those folks, it's been really hard. I know that Groton Public Schools has been doing job fairs every week or going to job fairs every week. And as soon as we get people interested, we kind of send them to the schools. But that has been a real hardship, I would say, this year. And then I'm hearing from the military superintendent liaison committee that I serve on, that the Columbia class, of course, is being built here in Groton, and they will be stationed here in Groton. And they're looking, they just did a study, and you probably are aware of this, Mayor, of housing and looking at the Balfour Beatty for all of our military active duty. And those families always come to our schools, which we're so proud to serve. And we have the 2 new schools, but we're looking at, possibly by 2025 or 2030, having many more families in Groton. So that's just something I think we all have to be aware of as we're planning now and into the future. I just wanted, those were a couple things. And also, as you know, Fitch High School has their career pathways, and we actually collaborate with Grasso. We're going to be offering opportunities after school for some of the Fitch students. And I also believe in the whole workforce readiness. I think that's a great term, career readiness. Kids get there in all different ways, and we certainly want them to excel and find those jobs that they really are, bring out their passions and their proclivities, what they're good at, what they love to do. So, that's something that I'm really interested in. And anytime that kids can get an internship where they get a real life opportunity and to partner, our 5 elementaries are now magnet, and we partner with this community, whether it's Project O, Ness, the museum. There was just a great article about NEA connecting with one of the Mystic museums. And so those partnerships and that enrichment that we're creating during the day and after school are so important for our kids, because they engage them and they give them insight into what those things are that they love to do. So I just wanted to say that from the educator's perspective, that we're always looking for those partnerships and internships. So reach out to us at Groton Public Schools too.
Very good, thank you. And Mayor Hedrick, did you want to add anything at this point, sir?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor Granatowski. Yeah, it's great to have all the people that spoke tonight. We have some issues here. Workforce development is definitely going to be an issue. We need to work on that, but it could also be diploma programs, adult education, in addition to the younger people that are coming up. We also have people that are limited in the jobs that they can seek, and therefore the salaries that they can maintain, they can obtain based on the education that they currently have, or that they got in the past based on either a situation they were in or a decision that was made. So if there's a way that we can embellish GED programs, diploma programs, things like that, that'll help as well. Some of the challenges that we have, I heard childcare is an issue. We'll have to figure out, that's going to take some creativity in order to figure this, because I don't know that ARPA funds could be directly used for that. But if we can have creative ways in order to find solutions to other problems, that may free up money that can then go to either childcare programs, or that can go to the business owners to increase wages. So this is going to be a challenge. I think we're all up for the challenge. In town are working together on this whole thing. Tabitha talked about the program that where Sierra's involved, and we're going to have educational programs over the city and in the town. So we're working to get everybody in this region. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hedrick. Councilor Bordelon, did you have something else at this point?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, first off, I was wondering if there's a possible way to collaborate with, I guess, asking Mrs. Austin to put out this flyer that Tabitha spoke about, maybe on a robocall, post on the website, to say that these surveys available. I know I get them all day from you guys, these robocalls and surveys.
Too many robocalls.
But it's great though. I think it's a direct contact, and it's going to scan the most amount of people the fastest, the quickest. But I think it should go up on our town school webpage, as well as individual schools webpage. It should be posted in the counselor's guidance counselor's office. So when parents come in for consults, it should be in the waiting room at the schools. That's where there's a lot of traffic, and maybe a flyer or poster, John, Bert, that we can start putting around our town. I know that we do that big thing when there's a run coming up. I've seen other towns where we did the Strong Groton hang up a few of those around the fences or up in the air around town, letting people know that this is what's going on. There's ways in which we can get the word out a little bit more effectively. And other ways about with childcare, one of the things outside of the box that I think of helping is having drop-in availability for people to go to a community center. One thing that Groton really doesn't have a strong hold on yet, we are working towards it, and funding hasn't fully been implemented in its infrastructure at Fitch Middle School. But if that facility was fully up and operational, and some towns have something called drop-in daycare, where during the day, you have to be registered and vaccinated and have, your child with all its physicals, but they actually have someone who allows parents to drop in so they can run to a doctor's appointment or cover until their husband gets home. And having a place where is the center of our town where our children are outside of school have a place to go. And that would be a Groton Community Center. And that's something I think that's a good infrastructure starting point that really directly impacts the families and the children in our community, bringing back big brothers and big sister programs at the high school level and all of the elementaries, and also scholarship programs where I saw one community. I know that we have a great treehouse program here, and there's some based on income, but let's take it a step further. Maybe that person who has to pay $85 a week, and that's based on a scholarship, based on income, now qualifies for an $85 scholarship. And that $85 a week, now they pay zero. And that money now is going back into their pocket. And there's ways that we can, infiltrate that money, because that's going to allow that person to be back in the workforce and be workforce ready. So those are ways that we can do and find ways through our human resource department, collaboration with our school programs and our town to put money and to help defer childcare costs. And those are ways I would love to see things happen. So, but I would love for the robocalls to come out at the school, because I think that hits the largest community in our town.
We do have access to the most amount of families, so I'd be happy. So share that information. I think the partnership that you speak of too, Portia, is so important. I know that our treehouse program will be meeting with Jerry at Parks and Rec just to maybe, and we had that synergy during COVID. We were using those facilities and trying to make it very cost effective for families during that whole COVID. So we'd like to continue that, but the partnerships are really essential. The mayor and I have talked about a partnership where we can tutor kids over in certain neighborhoods. So I haven't forgotten that, Mayor, and we definitely want to be able to do those kind of things.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. We're gonna reach out to you.
Okay, good.
That's important to me, and we're gonna continue
to
do that for the tutoring to those areas.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
I've been dealing with buses too much. I'd rather talk about kids and their learning.
No, I understand. You're very busy.
Mr. Burt?
Just to mention, I did just forward that flyer to Superintendent Austin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
And I just wanted to, I think we're beyond the first item on the agenda, because we have lost most of our business owners, have left us, and we've kind of gone roundabout on the COVID-19 updates. I just wanted to make a formal thank you to everyone. Unfortunately, I was not able to do this before we started losing people. All our business owners that came out to share their thoughts with us. We appreciate what you're telling us, and Ms. Harkin and Mr. Bronk will continue the outreach, and we hope you will all continue to participate with us and offer your feedback, because it's vital that we hear from you in order to be able to make the best use of the money that the town has been given. So that's great.
Madam Mayor, Madam Mayor, I had one more thing I just wanted to add quickly.
Very quickly, because we need to get to the last agenda item also.
I can respect that. I just had one thing that just came to mind, and I thought it would be very helpful. Regarding the businesses also, as far as outreach, if there's are businesses that are willing to take these flyers and post them, that's another way to get folks to see them. I go to Manana's a lot. I actually go to the Silo place, the brewery sometimes here. And if they're willing, they have poster boards and things with business cards sometimes, and maybe they're willing to put that up in their business to help, because it's going to benefit the town of Groton. So just another way to outreach. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have item 2025-3 COVID-19 updates. I'm not sure if anyone, Mr. Burt, Mr. Bronk, Director Fondulis, anybody had anything. I think we've covered pretty much everything we needed to cover this evening.
I don't have anything else.
Mr. Bronk, are you all set?
All set, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to add some good news. We just had probably our 6th COVID-19 clinic that we've partnered with Hartford Healthcare. So it was really important to me last spring that my students were able to go to prom and dance and go to graduation. And so we really did a terrific job getting, you know, a lot of employees and a lot of students who are eligible in there. We've just had 2. We're going to have another one November 1st. I got my booster, and Groton Public Schools is close to 90% full staff vaccinated. Woo! So, and our students have done a great job too. And I think that we'll get closer to being back to better than normal as the healthcare, you know, continues. And those folks who aren't vaccinated or don't want to be are testing weekly. So just to let you know how that governor's challenge is working for us.
No, that's very encouraging to hear. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
So then, as far as where we are in process, as we discussed earlier, the council approved the process that staff developed with the long-term recovery input. And at this point, we've just got to kind of let them kick it into gear and start running with all the different meetings that they're going to be having. So I'm not sure that there's a need for us to meet again immediately. I think we'd be better off letting staff use their time to do the outreach now that we know what we're doing. Let's focus in on that. And then perhaps in November, would that be sufficient, Mr. Burt, since we're already in October, just go back to a monthly meeting in November?
Yeah, we really do need a few weeks to be able to jump on this.
Okay, very good. So we'll plan that around. We're gonna have to look at the schedule because we have, our council meeting is on a different night because of the election. So you will hear from us as far as the date on when we will be meeting in November then. And then Ms. Harkin, did you need anything from this body as far as publicizing your process or the process flow chart?
I just always ask that, you know, everyone involved share to their, you know, corresponding networks as much as possible. So if I send something out like the flyer or you have a Facebook page or something like that, that'd be great.
We did put it on the town's main Facebook page today, Tabitha, as well as right on our main website under the news section.
That's excellent.
Yes,
So then
thank you.
we'll all make sure that we're pushing it out to all different channels in order to get the most, the widest sweep that we can to reach people. Councilor Baumgartner, do you have something to share as far as a COVID update?
Yes, briefly, 2 things. One, read I think it was cited tonight, a day paper editorial regarding how towns, you know, process and how towns are distributing ARPA funds, and made mention of the fact that while, you know, we are continuing deliberations as to how we will spend our allocation, you know, our federal government and state are working hard to kind of fill certain gaps. You know, working with some of our larger nonprofits, providing direct relief. I saw the National Submarine Museum receive some funds through ARPA, but directly from the feds. And so just also maybe for us to keep tabs of, you know, what the direct relief to Groton is, you know, whether it's, you know, through the Unite CT program and was just curious if there was sort of a formalized data collection process on that, just knowing what the direct impact is that we can kind of quantify at, you know, from the different tranches that each, you know, that our community is getting, if that was possible. And maybe some of that data can also inform ultimately how we intend to spend those dollars so that we know, okay, this group has already received a certain allocation or, you know, or is benefiting from this type of funding, not group, but category, et cetera. And then the other thing on that same note, I saw Congressman Courtney, he shared, I think, a very helpful link in the news in the last week or so, a lot of talk about access to broadband, you know, how vitally important it is to, you know, be connected
Absolutely.
to, you know, to the web and certainly our kiddos, and, you know, so they can get their homework done. You know, shared some information on that on Facebook earlier. The FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, they have a program where they are helping essentially pay bills for low-income families to get access to the internet, and would be happy to pass that information along to you, John,
Be
or
great.
to Human Services. That way, we can start advertising this and really, let folks know they can get discounts on broadband service. And I typed in our zip code in the FCC website and found that actually all the major service providers participate in the program, including Atlantic, Frontier, and Comcast. So I'll send that over, and definitely would encourage all those who are struggling with their rent or their internet bills. There's just so many programs are now available to folks that can really help folks who are really falling through the cracks. So want to make sure everyone has those resources.
Yeah, we will publicize that as soon as you send it.
Councilor Bordelon, do you have another comment?
Sure, thank you. One of the other things I think that, COVID also really highlighted, as we stated, the concerns of being in the top 25 distressed towns, as well as looking at social economical impact and low income aspects. One of the things that, COVID relief money came into schools, and they were giving everybody free lunch, and it was stated that that would extend for this year. So that's a huge cost and impact for families that are on the borderline that almost qualify but don't quite. And that's someone can be like a family of four making barely 50,000, and school lunch can be $40 to $50 a week, depending. So I think, and I wanted to ask, would ARPA funding also be able to continue as a town? That is a strong infrastructure and speaks loudly to those 9 categories that we identified yesterday as a town that we are struggling with, making sure that every school, even if they're not Title I, post-COVID, is allowed to get free lunch. And that is a strong place we can put this money to, because that directly impacts our students and families, puts more money back in their pocket, and make sure children are well fed so they can be educated at school. So I just wanted to touch base with the superintendent and John Burt to see what type of thoughts on funding that, because I think that's a strong message forward for our town, because in the event that another rise in the pandemic or any other type of pandemic or emergency issue, if we already have free lunch for all of our kids in school, we're ahead of that game, and that's where I'd like to see us moving forward.
And I couldn't agree with you more. We want to see it continue. Ernie Koshmader and I have already met, and we have a game plan for future into many years to make sure that our families in all of our schools have access to free lunch.
So Mrs. Austin, do you need, are you applying for scholarships? Can ARPA fund be put in there? How do we make sure it just continues?
Well, Ernie goes through grants through the, through the federal programs for nutrition. And so because it's an enterprise fund with Groton Public Schools, it really is self-sustaining. He does all kinds of community meals, and I just got my box of farm to school. So he does a lot of fundraisers too. So I would say that right now, I don't think it's going to cost extra money. We're going to be able to do it through these grants, through these federal funds, and we have the right numbers. We've got about close to 50% of children who would qualify for free and reduced lunch. So I think just having that number will also qualify us in all of our schools.
Right.
So, and we might be partnering some of the schools too. So we're definitely on that one. But if I see that it's going to take additional resources, I certainly will look into our ARPESR and then, be able to talk. But John Burt and I are meeting on a regular basis. So, we can certainly talk about that. But I think I've got that covered.
I appreciate that, because I really do think as a town, it's a town-wide issue, and that puts money back in families' pockets and really supports the children in the community and increases our scores for education. So
I think so too. And I love the fact that we've gotten boxes of food and done a real good job trying to make sure our pantries are full, and that has to continue too.
Yes.
If we are at the 50% that qualify, then we should qualify for the community eligibility provision, which would get free and reduced for breakfast and lunch across the whole district. So that sounds like that's where we are. And so then the ARPA money then can be used for other purposes.
Other things, right.
Very good.
Great. That's great to hear, because in the past, we only had certain Title I schools. So
you're right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Now that we're magnetized and we've got one middle school and one high school, we mirror the community.
Exactly. Thank you. All right. I think we are set. And so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
By Bordelon, seconded by Baumgartner. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved unanimously. We are adjourned at 6:58. Sorry, it was a late one tonight, but we had good discussion.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Simoncini, thank you for
Thank you
joining
for
us.
coming, Susan
We
Austin.
appreciate you coming out.